Alright, let's get this show on the road. Rainier Valley, a neighborhood known for its diversity, is not without its share of controversy as well. Rainier Valley is centered along Rainier Avenue South and is bordered by Martin Luther King Way South, as well as I-90 is a border to the north and the Bryn Mawr Skyway District forming a border to the south. Its zip code, 98118, is home to almost 50,000 people, with large percentages being Asian American and African American populations. Rainier Valley's history covers many time periods, from the Native Americans who lived in the area before it was charted by white settlers in the 1850s to post-World War II developments, to civil rights movements and immigrant booms. With such a rich history, it would be impossible to capture the essence of the neighborhood in one video, so we will be mainly focusing on information learned during our virtual tour and our individual population health topics.
Alright, now it's time to get into some demographics. As mentioned earlier, Rainier Valley is a rather populous neighborhood housing just over 48,000 residents. The people of the neighborhood follow a pretty standard age curve with a median age of about 38.3 years. One thing this neighborhood struggles with, though, is income. 45% of the population makes less than $50,000 a year, with 17% of those people falling below the poverty line. This can probably be attributed to the fact that only half of the population is college educated, and 22% said that they can't even speak English very well. All things considered, the demographics of Rainier Valley are definitely a barrier because of the lack of wealth in the community to make improvements. However, things are looking up because more newer and nicer housing options are popping up, attracting more people to the neighborhood.
From both our research and our mapping of the neighborhood, it was obvious that transportation is an important asset to Rainier Valley's community. We saw a vast amount of well-developed crosswalks with signs and lights in the middle of the housing streets, and in the public streets we saw a lot of trolley buses using the electric power lines, which is both good for the environment and useful for pedestrians. A large portion of the main street is dedicated to the motor district, with many auto shops and collision repair places, mostly run by ethnic communities. We saw this access to jobs and focus on motor vehicles as an asset of transportation, since it showed that it was accessible even to the poorer communities as well. According to the Annual Review of Public Health on Health Equity in Transportation, access to good transportation is an important social determinant of health in all cities. Transportation brings a rise in household income, improves access to goods and services, and allows for community members to participate in sociocultural and political activities. However, according to the Seattle Metropolitan, the lack of transit and bus routes in Rainier Valley impacts low-income families of color the most. The median household income in Rainier Valley is $15,000 less than the Seattle average, and 16% of families there live in poverty. The buses that do travel to Rainier Valley are old and don't have as many amenities. Thankfully, though, we can assume that the transportation has improved since the article was published in 2017 because of continuing efforts to extend mass transit in Seattle neighborhoods. Overall, there's a lot to improve on to make transportation accessible to the people in Rainier Valley that need it, but transportation is an asset to those that have access to it.
It was decided that health within Rainier Valley is a barrier. Rainier Valley is observed to have very few pedestrians and an abundance of gas stations and car shops because of this. This directly correlates to the overall health of the neighborhood in a negative way. Also, there is a very distinct economic division. It is plain as day which side of the neighborhood gets better opportunities, and this has a negative health effect on the lacking side of the neighborhood. Lastly, there is not a hospital nearby, only strip mall type clinics, which could be troubling in the case of health emergencies.
Rainier Valley is known for its diversity, made famous for its claim of being the most diverse neighborhood in the country. This claim was further reinforced during our virtual tour, where we noted many ethnically diverse businesses and restaurants. Although its position as the most diverse neighborhood could be disputed, census data indicating significant populations of Asian American and African American citizens is indisputable. While the African Americans and Asian Americans make up 7% and 14% respectively of Seattle's overall population, they make up 24% and 30% of the population in Rainier Valley. However, Rainier Valley's rich diversity does not stem from a positive note. During the early 1900s up until the civil rights movements of the 60s, many landowners created racial restrictive covenants, agreements to not sell certain areas of land to specific ethnic minorities, such as African Americans and Asian Americans. Housing restrictions on minorities forced them to live in specific neighborhoods in Seattle, and the effects of these restrictions can be seen even in the early 2000s. Although I would consider the dark past in which the neighborhood achieved its rich diversity to be a significant barrier in terms of racial justice, I believe that in the 21st century, Rainier Valley's hotspot of unique cultures is a great asset that exemplifies the American melting pot. Alright, so it's 1 in the morning. I just finished editing the video. I think it's a pretty good piece of work. There's only one glaring issue, and it's the fact that I did not possess the ability to write a conclusion. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Goodbye. Oh god, that was cringe.